Well, I know a pretty important somebody that loves you, and that's Michael Jordan. So
Oh man,
I
yes.
was like, was he at
Okay,
the parade?
how validating. Okay, how validating. When The Last Dance was being put together, I think they moved it up. It was supposed to be like in August or something. They go, we're going to do it in May or whatever. And it's in the pandemic. I'm at Costco, shopping, trying to get all those big items that we couldn't get during the pandemic. And the production company from ESPN is like, okay, we're going to do this Last Dance project. So they said, you know what? There's a piece in the project where we asked Michael Jordan who he's listening to, and he says Kenny Lattimore. Okay, fine. I knew he was a fan in general because I lived that. I lived that moment years ago, but it wasn't exactly the moment that we saw on television. I never saw him on the bus. I never heard him respond. I just knew that he used to call me to do functions, and he was a big fan. He let me know. Huge supporter. I ran into Charles Barkley one day. Charles Barkley was like, "Man, MJ single-handedly was marketing you throughout the NBA, to all this. So I would go places and all of the NBA players would know who I was. And I'd be like, wow, this is amazing. But a lot of this stuff I didn't find out till later in terms of how vocal he was in promoting my music or talking about however my music had affected him. So just like the rest of the world, I watched The Last Dance and I was like, oh, this is the part. Now, I should say, just for detail's sake, that because the song had to be licensed to ESPN for the documentary, that was the reason why they called me to let me know. Okay, it has to be licensed. Do you give your approval? Absolutely, I give my approval, but I still sit there like the rest of the world to see what is he going to really say and what did they capture on camera. And when he got into it, I completely forgot that I had sent him this advanced copy of my From the Soul of Man project and the days like this. And I'm sitting there like my mouth drops and this whole thing unfolds and then my phone blows up immediately. Oh my gosh, all these like hundreds of text messages and calls start to come in. And they're like, did he just say Kenny Lattimore was you listening to? And then he goes on to brag about how it's oh my God that nobody else had it. I thought it was fun. Oh, now let me tell you how important it was to be unbothered at that point. It was very important for me to be unbothered at that point because memes came. So many people were like, you have the people that really love it, and they're just like, oh my God, he represented R&B and all this other stuff, and we love hip hop, but R&B is taking a different kind of position now, and so you have the lovers of that who are like, well, this is a win for R&B, and then you had the people who wanted to be me in that moment. And they were coming up with all kind of the internet is undefeated. It was fun, and because I was unbothered, because I had those moments so early in my career and in my life, I was able to enjoy every moment of it as opposed to what are they saying? Why are they? It was a
Well,
blast, man.
I think the part that surprised people was that it's when he chose to listen to you as well. Like I'm sure he listened to you around the
Absolutely,
house, but the fact that he was using your music and listening to it before the finals, it
and
was
that's what
like
I didn't know.
of all
I had
the times we would not have guessed
right,
that.
and I had no idea that the only explanation I could give when people were asking me about that was maybe because I think of my music as being calming and soothing. So maybe
Correct.
maybe the force of his energy was so intense that he needed that balance of the soothe, before he went to just balance him out for his greatness.
Well,
You
you
make
just
up
said
something.
well, you just said a second ago that he had reached out to you before about some performances. So what was it like when you finally met him or when you like really realized that Michael Jordan was a fan of yours?
um, really surreal. Actually, to take you back and give you the full history, I got a call some years ago when Never Too Busy came out, my first single again, to be a part of the cologne. Remember the Michael Jordan cologne?
I do.
Well, so But he wanted to use the cologne and have Never Too Busy playing, and that he was supposed to be in the mirror, like getting dressed or something, shaving. And I didn't write Never Too Busy. So there was some kind of dispute with the song being used, and the publishers and people that own the song said no. Can you believe that? I was devastated. Yes, I'm going to say the word devastated, because as a young artist and a fan, I was like, wow, I didn't think I'd ever meet him. After that, I was like, oh well, wow, that happened. And I get a call a little later on when he's doing some branch launch promotional events. He had like a dinner or something. It was really intimate in New York. And I was asked if I wanted to go in. And I was like, of course I want to go in. So when I got there, I remember sitting and waiting like through sound check for him to come downstairs, because they said Michael Jordan wants to come downstairs. He wants to meet you. You got your suit on. You're like, oh man, get yourself together. And Ahmad Rashad was there too. He said, this is my buddy. They come in, and great big hug. He give me these big hugs, like pick me up in the air, kind of like wow. And I'm thinking, this is interesting, because I don't, you just think of this great person. I don't know. I don't even know how to put it in words how it was like, wow. But I knew he was a super fan, because he took me aside. He said, I only want Ahmad and I to come into this room first. This is my first meeting with him. He said, I want you to sing for just me and Ahmad first before anybody comes into the room. And I want you to sing a song called Forever, which was an album cut.
He went with a deep cut.
He went with a deep cut. And I was like, if he's going for Forever, then he's a fan for real. And what was really funny was I brought Barry Eastman, who produced For You, and Barry Eastman, for whatever reason, knew that song. Go figure. Barry said, "Oh, it's the one that he started playing the chords," and I was like, "Okay," because Forever was not even on my set list. It wasn't even in my mind, but I wrote it. So I sat there, and we figured out the chords and stuff, and I sang Forever for him. And ever since then, it was like he would call me back for other things, and his wife at the time would launch restaurants, and they'd call me, and I'd sing for that. It was just amazing. What an amazing time.
You said something a moment ago that I don't want to lose track of. Is that when you were talking about the different places that R&B and hip hop are in right now?
Yes.
What is the landscape right now for R&B singers?
I think that for R&B singers, there's a new space, because I think we've gone through decades of the music industry changing, and being appreciated, what the music industry has decided to appreciate and promote has been changing. So I lived through the whole idea of let me see, we were doing R&B. R&B was king, and then here comes Biggie and Pop, and all the names that most people know, even if they don't listen to hip hop. And the landscape begins to change. But what I always loved was that R&B and hip hop were always a force together. It started out that way from the 80s that I remember. I know it goes back further than that, but the 80s when it was Grandmaster Flash and all that, and Good Times, and they would use Chic or use a sample of something that was R&B usually, or jazz, and have this great merger of creativity that was so explosive and intense and original. So here we are, after things have become commercialized, and a lot of things have changed. The lyrical content has changed. The purpose has changed. And through the years, singing began to be, we wanted singers that sounded like other singers, and that's what the industry did a lot of times. There was a time when R&B singers were all original. If you think of before my era, it was or even in my era, Joe doesn't sound like me. Maxwell, D'Angelo, we all, if we're on a record, Music Soul Child, our buddy,
Hmm.
it you sounds like nobody else. Jill Scott is not going to sound like Gladys or Patty or Shaka or whatever. All these distinct voices used to be the greatest compliment. It was the greatest compliment for your voice to be distinctive. So now that we've gone through so many eras of, okay, now we want the look and we want you to sound like a commercialized singer, which was the Dreamgirls story. If anybody saw the movie Dreamgirls, that was the whole story of it. Now I think this new generation wants something raw. They want something original. So when we hear Jasmine Sullivan, they're like, "Woo, these runs, and this girl can really, really sing." And yes, she can. And whether she, gets her, well, now she's getting her accolades, which is so wonderful. Even if she had been getting them 10 years ago, because she was still out then, and she should have got them back then too. But her gift still could have existed in that time period.
Right. She could have gone in any era of
Absolutely.
R&B.
She could have
Right.
gone in any era of R&B. But there are a lot of singers now who appreciate that. So now I think this next generation wants those gospel roots. They want that passion for singing that the generations before us had, that was squashed through the music industry.